Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 23 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 50 today for the Italian Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous one at Spa, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. Double the action there with a sprint race, but really the main port of action was in the full Grand Prix after we tactically took a full column of engine components back of the grid and made our way through for a pretty amazing result. Quite a lot of action involved, especially once we got onto the hard tyres. This car came alive. Lovely little double overtake there in one foul swoop on Ocon and Lawson, and it went down right to the last lap. Spoiler alert if you don't want it to be ruined, but this was a pretty hilarious last lap, last corner, as we went for the dive. We caught up to 1 and 2, and we unfortunately gave Bottas a little bit of a love tap, and we became Pierre Gasly's new favourite ever teammate. Honestly, especially for those of you who've been watching me for a couple of years, you'll know the history, the lore behind myself and Pierre Gasly on the F1 game. So the fact I helped him out on this game is pretty a nice, wonderful kind of, change of pace and full circle. But into this episode, as you can clearly see just then on the right-hand side, we're going to pay in 2,000 R&D points into our research project, the next season's engine build. So that's going to take us to 9,000 overall R&D put in to the engine build. We've got $10 million to still spend to actually complete the project, but 9,000 R&D points will now confirm and solidify ourselves to have a mid-tier engine build for Season 4 2026. I think there's still time this season to go for the highest tier engine we could possibly make, but at the same time, we have been trying our best to keep up pace with McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, although they are very much a quicker car. The same for Red Bull at this stage of the season. Last episode was a great step in the right direction to, be nailing down and taking every chance we can at getting these points over these other teams to keep in the fight. And maybe with 1 or 2 more other upgrades for this season's car, we could maybe actually still properly challenge for the Constructors. I'm really not sure about the Drivers' Championship. As much as we have closed a little bit on Piastri and Verstappen, I think them two, they just look far too consistent with each other that I think it is going to be Piastri versus Verstappen. But you never know. Gasly's now closing up to us, with a big weekend for him at Spa. But things like this don't help us. We've got a front nose upgrade on the aerodynamics, the final ultimate front upgrade on the downforce. It's failed, so we have to spend a further 1,300 points just to actually see that upgrade come into the car. So things like that may not help our case for, either putting R&D into the engine build or using the R&D to upgrade the car now. But what I can do is finally pay in that final $10 million to actually fund this entire engine build project for Season 4. We put in 40 million at the start of the season, one big go, and I said I just wanted to give myself a little bit of breathing room in case we wanted to upgrade facilities. But right now, my facilities are all at a point where I'm happy with them, so we can finally go ahead and put in the final 10 million. So whatever happens, we will have our own engine built for Season 4, and whatever happens, it will be at least minimum a mid-tier engine in terms of the performance spectrum we could have got with this build your own engine mod for the next upcoming season. So it's up to us, and I guess what happens for the rest of this season in terms of the races, whether we go up to high tier or, we're going to push on to try and push in this season. It's a fine balancing act, and it's exactly the kind of gameplay that you are always going to get with a building your own engine. It's the exact kind of thing that in real life these F1 teams have to balance, developing next year's car or developing this year's one. And it's one that, honestly, I can now relate. It is a very hard balance to find, because there's been plenty of times this season where I've really, it's been painful not to maybe make more upgrades to actually fully fight McLaren, fully fight Red Bull, and we're going to have to, have more races like Spa where hopefully we can make the most of it. That's the hope, at least. you know, on the flip side, we could just have some very difficult one coming up where McLaren and Red Bull are just much quicker, and we can only settle for, you know, what we had at Silverstone, let's say, which was a P4 and 5. So we shall see. But we come to Monza then, the Italian Grand Prix, and off the back of Spa, I think spirits are high. I hope we could go well around here. You know, Spa, it's a big compromise in terms of the wing levels you run and the downforce you have in the corners. At Monza, it's more about just all out speed. I've not put the wings, you know, majorly low, but we've got them low enough, I think, to still be good in the straight line, but also give us a bit of downforce, because, of course, we've been there and done that with 0-0 wings, and that was absolutely awful in the race, so definitely not doing that again. But Q1 wasn't the cleanest session ever. You may have seen there, we actually started off with a fuel system issue, then a bit of traffic to start my first flying lap, and on the second flying lap, well, at the moment we're P15, and we're only gaining about 4/10 as we go a little bit off circuit through the final corner, and across the line, it's only P14, so we have to go again for a third flying lap on a second set of soft tyres in Q1. So at least for me, the pace isn't looking too great. I'm not dialing into the circuit as much, and it's a howler on the third run. It's a lock-up for us because we dipped a tyre into the grass. Look at the right-hand side, that front right tyre just goes into the grass. We were a good 5-6 up. We actually could have been flying on that last flyer, but unfortunately, that is my quick lap's done. And it's a little bit ropey because the checkered flag's fallen. That's it. I'm not going to improve my flying lap on my best run, and we're down in P15. So I've got to really hope that no one else improves. Let's have a look as we go to the end of Q1. Thankfully, we can breathe a sigh of relief, and we're going to make it through. Just about. You know, only took like 2 of those people behind us to set in a good lap time, and we could have been absolutely toast and out of qualifying in the first session. But on the flip side, my teammate, Gasly, he was top of Q1, and for me, unfortunately, the misery continues into Q2. The car a handful to drive into turn 1. So, you know, Spa, we look so quick, myself and Gasly. This very much is going back towards how the car was for me at Silverstone, where in the corners it's not great, in a straight line it's not great, but no problems for my teammate. So yeah, very, very puzzling stuff here. You know, the AI teammate able just to, you know, drive through all these issues seemingly, or just not have them, and we're really under pressure now on our second flying lap in Q2. This is another set of new tyres, which means if I do get into the top 10 shootout, I'll only have 1 set, and thankfully we are going to get through. But yeah, I've only got 1 set now, but that was a big lap for us, that second flyer. We needed that. We brought it through finally, and we are in. Again, just about, really. You know, only a couple of tenths off, and we would have been knocked out of the top 10 shootout. A bit of a misery for Mercedes and Aston Martin, as both, you know, all 4 of them are knocked out. Mick Schumacher with a penalty as well, seemingly, and it looks like actually good stuff for the Italian fans. Ferrari actually looked quite quick around here at that home Grand Prix, so can they finally not bottle it, not have issues, and actually show up, qualify well, and then carry that over into the race? I guess we're going to see as we're now into the final qualifying session of Saturday. It's the top 10 shootout, and this is my one and only flying lap, and, well, that's not great. Understeer into the left-hander, a little bit of a lock-up, dip a tyre into the gravel. It was desperate times. I was pushing so hard to gain time, and we pushed way too far, and I've done a Leclerc from, what was it, like 2020? Off at Parabolica. It's just because I knew I had lost about 2-3 tenths alone in Sector 1, so I was pushing so hard through the final corner to try and gain time. Got way too early on power, tried to snap out of the oversteer I was getting, and we put it in the wall, and we've emulated what Leclerc did in 2020. And actually, on the flip side, Leclerc himself in this session has had a blinder. 1.4 seconds ahead of the next man. I'm sorry, that's a little bit probably of a glitch simulation time, I'm not going to lie, but it's happy days for Ferrari. It's a 1-3, 1.4 the gap from pole to P2. Big performance from the Scuderia. They're going to be pretty happy, and it's a bit of a question mark for the top two in the championship. Piastri down in P5, Bottas the quicker McLaren driver, and the same for Red Bull. Lando Norris the quicker driver, Verstappen, the one who's in the championship fight, down in P7. And then where did that pace go that Gasly was showing in Q1 and Q2? It really fizzled out as we went through the sessions basically, and he's only come through in P6 to be fair. P10 really not that big of a difference to P6. So yeah, both of us will have some places to make up, but I get the vibe that our pace may not be as electric as it was at Spa, and it may be back towards what it was at Silverstone, which is frustrating, but it's just where the car is, and you know, just shows more so how extraordinary that Belgium Grand Prix result was, and why we've got to, you know, well, why we celebrated it so much basically at the time. So let's go to the grid and see what we can do. It might be a tough one, and there might even be some rain involved. Let's go to the grid.
A difficult race awaits these drivers here in Monza, but glory awaits too at the Italian Grand Prix. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Norris, Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Verstappen, Ocon, Ricciardo, the owner driver, Albon, Fernando Alonso, Russell, Tsunoda, Mick Schumacher, Théo Pourchaire, Hülkenberg, Stroll, Magnussen, Liam Lawson, Perez, and Logan Sargent. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway.
So this potentially could be a bit of a difficult race for myself and Pierre Gasly, but just like in Spa, to be fair, thinking about it now as we go into the formation lap, if we can stick with people with DRS in a slipstream train, there may be a chance. There may be a good chance. It's very tricky in the F1 game at Monza, where once you lose the toe of, you know, the race leader, let's say, or, you know, the top positions, you can sometimes completely lose them for the entirety of the race. So it's going to be actually quite crucial these first few laps to not lose too much time fighting cars like these Alpines ahead of us, Ricciardo and Ocon, and to stay with cars like the Red Bull, you know, like we did in Spa, where we basically let Verstappen tow us to that podium and that last lap moment where we helped Pierre Gasly get that win. So let's see if we can do similar kind of things today, or at least just be in the fight for some decent points around Monza as we go to 5 red lights for the Italian Grand Prix. A Ferrari on pole, but will the home crowd be cheering by the end of it? Lights out and away we go. It's a horrendous start for Ocon and Ricciardo, but we have our own issues. Massive amount of wheel spin in 4th gear, trying to get the ERS deployed, and we nearly spin it embarrassingly into the wall. We've kept it going into turn 1. Now side by side with Fernando Alonso, who's hit us as there's contact in the inside of turn 2, and there's enough contact and enough cars piled up that it's not only a safety car, it's a red flag on lap 1 of this Italian Grand Prix. We're all going to have to stop and reset and go again, and this is why. So the onboard from Fernando Alonso squeezes us, but the real reason he actually made contact with us was because an Alpine was on his inside, and it's Daniel Ricciardo, the man who won here in 2021, out early, and that mass pile up of ghosted cars is exactly why there is a red flag. And so now all of a sudden we're going to be restarting this race in wet conditions. Yep, intermediate, because the elapsed time from, you know, when the red flag got called out to us actually getting going again was enough time for, like I said, that forecast of rain to come in. You can see there the race strategy is going to be for intermediates. I've kind of double checked and tried to, you know, switch it off onto wets, onto intes, just to really try and make sure we start at intes. And thankfully this time we do. We don't have that glitch as we go for the second time to lights out at the Italian GP, but this time in very different conditions. Carlos Sainz, one of the Ferraris, having a shocking start, and he holds up the entire left-hand side of the grid. So myself and Gasly, all of a sudden in a very good position in a top 5. You've got Bottas leading the way from Lando Norris in the Red Bull, just ahead of Leclerc in 3rd place. So it's a bit of a disaster for Ferrari through those 2 different 5 red lights moments. They've lost the lead, and Sainz has lost many positions as he's down to P7. He's held up Verstappen and Piastri outside the points at the moment. So both the championship top 2 really not having a great Italian Grand Prix so far. Maybe a chance for the rest of us to all close up a bit in terms of points. But there's another safety car on lap 3, and it's because of the other Alpine. Ocon out of this one, and he's blocking the circuit and the racing line. So that's why the safety car is out. No red flag this time, though. So we'll go around on intermediate. But the forecast for rain was never for too long. It was always going to go back to dry. So I wonder, this safety car period may just bring that dry period to us a little bit sooner, because we're all going a lot slower now around under safety car, and on lap 5 we're getting ready to go again on towards lap 6. And you can see kind of already, if you look at the circuit, it already looks a little bit less wet. There's no droplets of rain settling on the camera screen, on the T-cam here, so I think we're already getting back towards dries as we get going again. Gasly pulling to the inside. We're getting a great slipstream, but I daren't really make a move because I don't want to lock up and have a bit of a howler, and instead we just watch Pierre Gasly have a go at Lando Norris. So just before the safety car period, I think Leclerc got the Red Bull, so the Ferrari's in 2nd place. We're tucked up behind Gasly, trying to maybe pull out to make a move, but we're being cautious in these conditions, you know, with our own teammate, not to make any sort of move that'd be a bit rash, because, you know, like I said, this may be a difficult race back when we go into dry, so the last thing we want is to get stuck, you know, into an altercation with our teammate. And to be fair, he's not going to have to worry about anything, because I'm really struggling for grip as now we've lost nearly 2 seconds to Gasly. Russell's on the back of us because I had such a mare with the rear end off through the Ascari section as Verstappen tries to go around the outside of Carlos Sainz, doesn't manage it. A load of people in the pits. A load of people in the pits. We carry on along with Verstappen and Piastri. So a lot of this grid think it's time for the dry tyres. I think it still looks pretty damn wet out there, but into turn 1, it's a double lock-up from us. We're going to have to go over the sleeping policeman curbs and lose position because Verstappen obviously has the exit, and to be fair, I probably would have had to given at least one of the positions to one of those 2 drivers behind me, because I didn't make the corner. The only way I stayed in first place was cutting across those curbs. We're going to thankfully just about stay ahead of Piastri, but we really actually held him up, so much to his annoyance versus the very man close to him in the Drivers' Championship. We probably helped out Verstappen there, holding him up basically, but I was obviously doing my own race, trying to keep it on the black stuff within the white lines, and now we come in and strapping on a set of hard tyres that I think should get us all to the end of the Grand Prix. Most of us on hards, apart from Leclerc on the top left I saw there on the mediums, as we just get ahead of Piastri, ghosting through him on the exit. And Fernando Alonso, oh my god! Alonso's hit us! Alonso's hit us on the main straight. What on earth was he doing? As we come down out the pit exit, he drove into us. Like, actually chose to drive into us when he could clearly make some room on the left. We were a passenger in that. I don't even know what happened. It all happened in such a flash. Looked behind me, saw the Aston coming at me at a rate of knots. Couldn't even react properly, and then the next thing I know, there's a front wing flying off and some ghosting occurring. Let's look at a replay then. So Alonso side by side with someone, and he just drives into us. I'm not even joking. Fernando Alonso, and I think another driver, they've literally chosen to drive into us. Look at this. This is ridiculous. Alonso could have just kept his racing line side by side with that Alfa Romeo Haas and not crashed into us. Oh my god, that's even worse. Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber, that's even worse than Alonso. He was all the way left on the natural racing line and decided to turn right into that other car coming out the pit exit. So 2 AI howlers. Some very weird, glitchy racing line coding there as they both just decide to drive into us as we exit the pit lane. And of course, I didn't mention it, but that was another safety car in this race. So we've ended up coming out in P9 then by staying out that further lap. Piastri also losing out. Of course, he's directly behind me. Verstappen is 3 positions ahead, so he didn't lose as much time because he was about a good second or so ahead of us coming into the pits. But now we're all bunched up and we get going once again under green flags at Monza. Now all of us, apart from a few, on the hard compound tyre. Poor chair going defensive, but we're going to cut our way through 1, 2, maybe 3 as we have a little go at George Russell. We're going to try and set him up for the switchback. The Alfa Romeo Haas has just crashed into me as I was going for the switchback, and I didn't really think he was going to even try to stick his nose in there. With Russell, we're going to fake to the left, go to the right, and finish off that third overtake. But yeah, I don't really know what went on with the Alfa Romeo Haas. He'd clearly got overtaken. Like, what was the point of even sticking his nose in there? I'll never know. But it was a good move initially into turn 1 to get Porsche and that Haas in one foul swoop and to set up that move with the Mercedes, as we just have seen Leclerc make a move for the lead of the race. The Ferrari actually has got some pace around here. He's on the mediums though. He's one of 3 drivers that have chosen the medium. So whether the Ferrari team think they have that, you know, their tyre wear is that good, or that's going to be an absolute howler in terms of a strategy decision, we're going to have to see. But right now Leclerc leads the way, Bottas second, and there's some swapping around going on between Pierre Gasly, our teammate, and the 2 Red Bull cars. Lando at the moment trying to get back around the outside for P3, and Bottas is trying to get first place, but Leclerc, I just think really just due to the medium tyres, has the pace to stay ahead of that McLaren. But it's a long way to go, you know. I really don't think Leclerc's going to the end, and that may be something they regret by the end of this race, is Lando does get back ahead of Pierre Gasly to get into third, and he's found himself in a Red Bull sandwich, and Verstappen is looking pretty damn punchy, I'm not going to lie. And on lap 12, well, look further up the road, there you go, Verstappen on the outside. You have to really squint your eyes to see that in the distance, but all of a sudden Gasly's rear end is pretty damn close to us as we close in by a couple of tenths. That's how much time you lose when you're fighting through the corners side by side here at Monza. They continue to fight. Gasly on the inside again, and Verstappen has the better exit to get ahead for P4. But now we are here. We have arrived, and we can maybe even overtake Gasly with plenty of battery use. He's going to stay to the left-hand side. We go to the right, so we're going to try the outside of the left-hander, but Gasly just parks his car perfectly there, gives us a little bit of a squeeze and defends us quite well, and we just can't really afford to gamble on trying to keep it through on the inside. So we backed out of it, and we'll have to re-engage because we lose a few tenths. And to be honest, behind me, Russell's looking a bit punchy and is closing up, so he might have some threat from behind rather than ahead of us. As we see now, Bottas is into the lead then on lap 14. We haven't seen it, but he's overtaken Leclerc, but into Ascari. It won't matter. It won't matter. The Finn makes a costly error. He locks up with the pressure of the Ferrari driver behind him, one of the home favourites, and Leclerc is into the lead once again in the prancing horse. But and it's getting worse. It's getting worse for Bottas as Lando is now going round the outside of the McLaren. It might be a Red Bull 2-4 because Verstappen at the same time is battling Pierre Gasly and looking to stay ahead of him as Bottas comes back at Lando, to be fair, with the DRS, and the McLaren actually stays ahead in second. And Gasly actually is maybe overtaken Verstappen there as they swap positions a few more times through the exit. And you can see actually behind though, we're close behind, but Russell equally also sticking with us. But by lap 17, 10 laps to go. So what's happened here is Piastri, outside the top 10, he's finally woken up a bit. He's overtaken Russell, and myself and Piastri have gapped Russell by a couple of seconds, and I'm now actually on the back of Gasly because Verstappen has just pulled away from him, and that Red Bull is finally showing its true pace in some clean air. And I honestly don't think we're going to catch Verstappen again, as we see on the top left. I think that was Leclerc in the pits. I think Leclerc's pits from the lead of the Grand Prix off the mediums. What did I say? As we go defensive to stay ahead of Oscar Piastri in P4, but we've now got the championship leader behind us. He set the fast lap of the Grand Prix, so he's clearly got a lot of pace in the tank, and he's probably anxious about losing time because he can see his nearest competitor in the standings, Verstappen, pulling away by 2 seconds now. But we continue to try and fight him as much as we can, but at that point into Ascari, there was no point trying to keep it side by side. The McLaren's got me, but we're going to stick with him because now we're going to be the ones with DRS. But let's just go back to that Ferrari for a sec. Oh, P12. Leclerc was leading, and he's now P12. What a shocking decision by Ferrari, leading their home race, and they chose mediums that were never going to go the distance. Absolutely torrid stuff. But for us, it may be pretty good here, as we can now make it 3 wide, because Gasly is there on the left-hand side into turn 1. Oh, it's close. It's close. Gasly makes 2 bits of contact with myself, and then makes contact with Piastri, really getting the elbows out. I feel like Gasly's maybe got a taste of the aggression, the aggressive racing, let's say, from what happened in Spa, maybe, with what we did to Bottas there, because he really just was not afraid to make any amount of contact with myself or Piastri to stay ahead in P4 there. Pretty good double move, to be fair, from our teammate, but Piastri's eventually going to re-overtake him, and once again we find ourselves in a situation of maybe going 3 wide. This time we're going to be the inside, but we're going to play it really cautious because I could just see that ending in disaster. Instead, we just focus on overtaking Piastri. Again, a little bit of contact. It's getting a bit frosty, you know, with our former teammate and our new current teammate, but now with only about 7 laps to go, I'm really getting the same vibe as Silverstone, where there's not much else to do in this race in terms of to achieve, you know, the maximum we're going to get today, I think, is P4 and 5 as a team. And like in Silverstone, where I defended against Alonso behind us, I'm defending against Piastri with all I've got, really wringing the neck out the car there as we go full opposite lock and have a bit of a PTSD flashback moment to qualifying where I stuffed it in the wall. But we're trying our best to defend against Oscar, and that's giving Gasly some breathing room, because honestly, if Piastri overtook me and I wasn't able to re-overtake him, I honestly think he would get Gasly easily. So I'm trying my best to try and keep this P4 and 5. You know, I'll take one for the team and let Gasly finish ahead of us if it means we get the 4 and 5 as a unit. Meanwhile, look at this. On lap 23 onto 4, you've got the 2 Red Bulls lying astern, looking to make the move on Bottas, the lone McLaren up in the lead. Not anymore. Verstappen with the double overtake. He overtakes his teammate and Bottas to get into first place. Lando continues to scrap with Bottas, and to be honest, I think Lando had a bit of blinkers fighting Bottas too much. I don't think he actually knew how close his teammate was behind. And now Verstappen, all of a sudden, remember, he was fighting with me and Gasly, or at least Gasly, earlier in the stint, and now he's got the lead by a good second as we just continue to annoy Verstappen's championship rival, Oscar Piastri. We make contact into turn 1 as Oscar doesn't give us too much room to work with on the outside. To be fair, we maybe turned in a little bit early as I thought he was going to back out of that. But yeah, I think to be honest, so far in this career mode, you know, things have been very respectful between me and Piastri. I think after this race, I think he may hate me because I am doing Verstappen a solid here. Not intentionally, I'm just trying to maximise my own team's result, get this P4 and 5 for the Constructors' Championship's sake, limit the damage to Red Bull, try and limit the damage to McLaren, because we've got one of them ahead of us and one of them behind, but it's not doing Oscar as an individual driver any help in terms of his fight versus Verstappen. But it's nothing personal. It's just, you know, I've got to run my own race, got to run our own race for this team. As now Leclerc, out of nowhere, has joined the party on another set of medium tyres. What could have been, though, for him? I mean, he's fighting us for P5 now. He was leading the race. Honestly, I think the Ferrari, it seemed like it had okay pace. I honestly think they would have been better off just going on hards and trying it. But also, on the flip side, that was versus Bottas, who is now down in 3rd place, and it's a 1-2 for Red Bull, it would seem. So it looks like Red Bull actually had some secret insane pace around Monza. But anyway, with our fight with Leclerc, We're now trying to hold him back. Piastri's actually been overtaken fully. And look at the minimap. He's actually got Sainz for company as Leclerc tries to go down the inside at Ascari on the last lap, on the last sector. And Sainz has got Piastri. Piastri's down to P8 on the last lap, whilst his rival, Max Verstappen, leads home a dominant win by 2 seconds in a 1-2 for Red Bull. They have returned. Red Bull looks strong again in this career as we bring home a 4 and 5.
Here we are then, a thoroughly deserved win in Italy after another excellent Grand Prix. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sports that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
It seems like the momentum is coming back towards Red Bull Racing and Max Verstappen for the first time since Season 1 of this career mode. He's in a groove. He's been winning a few races, getting some consistent results. He's definitely been the team leader this time round, unlike last season where Lando was obviously the clear favourite, being in the title fight with myself. And, well, Piastri, it's the wrong McLaren who's on the podium. Piastri should have been up there in terms of the title fight, but it's Bottas who, well, not making up for what happened in Spa, but is at least being consistent with 2 back-to-back podiums for himself, whereas his teammate, obviously a little bit thanks to us being a bit of a nuisance to him, but also, to be fair, Ferrari just had electric pace. They both overtook him fair and square, and obviously, like I said, I'm just doing my own race. I'm not even in a title fight with Piastri. I'm not even thinking about a title fight with him. I'm thinking about, as the team owner, the Constructors' Championship, because there's still half a chance me and Gasly as a unit could try and challenge McLaren, because we're the only 2 teammates together right up there in the standings. We're only 17 points off McLaren. Red Bull, to be fair to them, 11 points off, so they're in the fight as well. But legitimately, if me and Gasly can continue to get these 4-5s, maybe one of us gets a podium or a second place, maybe a cheeky second win of the season, we could definitely still challenge for the Constructors' title, even if we're neither of us in the drivers' title fight with Piastri and Verstappen. So it is what it is. Unfortunately, Piastri just couldn't bring it up today, and he's lost a lot of ground to Verstappen. Verstappen's actually now leading the Drivers' World Championship. For the very first time, Piastri does not lead the standing. So is the momentum swinging now in Season 3? I guess we'll continue to find out. But guys, if you have enjoyed this one, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.